Rock-a-bye your baby with a Dixie melody. When you cruise.
The Fountainhead Antique Auto Museum in Fairbanks is a nationally acclaimed museum. It contains 80 vehicles, including horseless carriages, steamers, electric cars, speedsters, cyclecars, and 1930s classics. This 1898 Hay motor vehicle is the earliest known American-made four-cylinder gasoline-powered automobile still in existence. Its 5-horsepower four-cylinder engine reached a top speed of 6 miles an hour. It was never put into production, but compared to other early horseless carriages, it was big, handsome, and an imposing car.
Advertised as an automobile of quality, this 1903 Toledo rear entrance touring car had an interesting hill brake, essentially a pole that swung down from the chassis and dug into the ground. It also was one of the first cars to have an electric speedometer. Priced at only $850, this 1903 Cadillac Model A one-cylinder runabout was, quote, the automobile that solves the problem. The feature that brought Cadillac fame and prestige was its precision-engineered parts that could be assembled without the hand-fitting that characterized most cars of the early 20th century. Boasting 40 miles on a single charge, this 1903 Columbia Mark 19 electric Surrey was considered the first commercially viable personal electric motor car ever produced in the United States. Each rear wheel is driven by its own motor. The batteries hung from a tray in the rear of the car and could be quickly removed and replaced with a charge set, allowing the car to run all day. This 1904 Rambler Model L canopy rear entry was America's second mass-produced car and the first to come with a spare wheel assembly.
This 1904 Buckmobile runabout bragged about, quote, ease of riding without a peer. It had a unique suspension system consisting of 4-arch wooden planks connecting the body, springs, and axle. These buckboards allowed the car to travel, quote, without the slightest vibration over the most uneven roads. The whimsical umbrella was used as a sunshade when the car was parked.
Costing $1,250, the 1904 Stevens Duryea was the first marketable gasoline-powered car. A special feature allowed the driver to start the engine while seated instead of by direct cranking.
The 1905 Franklin Type A rear entry was called the motor car of the future. It was the world's most famous air-cooled car until the Volkswagen in 1937. In 1905, a Franklin drove from San Francisco to New York City in just under 33 days, shattering the old record by almost a month. As America's first mass-produced gasoline-powered car, the 1905 Oldsmobile Model B curved dash runabout slogan was, quote, nothing to watch but the road. It was the first car fitted with a speedometer and had a rear axle driven by a single chain and tiller steering. A side crank allowed the driver to start the car from the front seat. This 1906 Cadillac Model K runabout had a one-cylinder engine under the seat that reached a maximum speed of 40 miles per hour. Because under-the-seat engines had become passé, Cadillac disguised theirs with a dummy hood mounted over the front axle. The radiator cap is purely for show. Cadillac, fooling customers since 1906. This 1906 compound Model 7.5 light touring car had a 3-cylinder engine that reached top speeds of 28 miles an hour. The Compound was the first car to have a power braking system and an unusual dead man switch mounted to the right of the driver. If the driver lifted his arm off of the switch, even to wave, the throttle would automatically shut off and the brakes would be applied. Here we have a 1906 Pope Toledo Type 12 7-passenger touring car. The very first automobile in Fairbanks was a red Pope Toledo, and it caused great excitement as it scattered dogs and children from the streets. Locals call it the Devil Wagon, Road Monster, and the Carmen Demon. This red car is a 1907 white steamer Model G custom touring. A white steamer was an unusual choice for Alaska because its multiple water hoses and pipes were susceptible to freezing, and one needed a steady supply of unfrozen water to replenish the boiler at regular intervals.
After a speedy ride in a 1907 Franklin Type D Landaulet, a columnist wrote that, quote, "You can hardly get yourself put in the new Franklin chug wagon before you have arrived wondering what happened." The Landaulet was America's most successful air-cooled car, which required no water pump, hoses, or antifreeze. This is a 1907 Carter car, Model A fixed touring car. Famed for its friction drive, its transmission had no clutch, no gears, no universal joints, and no drive shaft. It was touted as the simplest automobile in the world, which even the most inexperienced operator cannot ruin or hurt. This is a 1908 Cadillac Model G touring car that introduced Cadillac's first 3-speed transmission. The leather upholstery was stuffed with horsehair, which was typical for the era. The 1908 Brush Model BC Runabout was one of the most successful light automobiles of its era. Marketed as every man's car, the axles, body, and wheels are all made from hickory, although a few disgruntled owners complained that the Brush Runabout had a wooden body, wooden axles, wooden wheels, and wooden run.
This 1908 Rambler Model 31 5-passenger touring car was called the Car of Steady Service. The company claimed a person could convert this model from a 5-passenger touring car into a 2-passenger roadster or flatbed truck in 3 to 5 minutes, referring to it as a utility car.
The 1909 Oldsmobile Model D Palace touring car was, quote, "the logical car at a logical price." It was one of the first cars to have any type of enclosure for the driver and front seat passenger. Oldsmobile was acquired by General Motors in 1908 and lasted until 2004, the longest lived of any American auto company.
The 1909 Cadillac Model 30 touring car was named for its horsepower. The Model 30 combined the luxury and performance of Cadillac's early 4-cylinder models with the moderate price of a 1-cylinder car. This high-wheeler, 1909 International Harvester Company's Model D auto buggy, was called the Farmer's Auto. It is essentially a modified horse-drawn wagon equipped with an air-cooled 2-cylinder engine and 2-speed transmission. High-wheelers were especially popular with farmers because they could easily navigate rough, muddy, and rutted country roads.
Here is a 1909 Ford Model T touring car. By the late teens, the Model T was the most popular car in Alaska's interior, thanks to its low price, simplicity, and ability to travel through mud, snow, and glacial streams. Some owners strapped skis to the front tires and wrapped chains around the rear ones so they could run on snow better.
This is a 1910 Stanley Model R Steam Roadster, better known as the Stanley Steamer. It was cheap, easy to drive, and odorless. In 1906, it set a land speed record of 127 miles per hour.
This 1910 Whiting Model A Roadster was, quote, a knobby car that will stand up under road work. It is built right. Whiting was a division within the Flint Wagon Works, whose owner bought the Buick Motor Car Company in 1903. Buick's management was later turned over to William Durant, who established General Motors in 1908.
The 1910 Schott Model R high-wheel runabout was marketed to doctors as costing less than to keep a single horse. Rumble seats were $20 extra. This Model R is in original condition and has never been restored. The 1911 Everett Model 430 touring car was among the first automobiles to have its cylinders cast in a single block. It was also one of the first cars to have a self-starter, but its compressed air starting system was soon rendered obsolete by Cadillac's electric starter. Considered the highest development of the motorcycle, the 1911 Kelsey Model M Motorette was advertised as, quote, one more wheel than a motorcycle, one less than an automobile, with the low cost and lightweight advantage of the former and the comfort and reliability of the latter. This 1911 Oakland Model 24 Roadster was a car with a conscience, having been built by men who were told to do their very best at all times. The founder of the Pontiac Buggy Company and the designer of early Cadillacs launched the Oakland Motor Company in 1907 and merged 2 years later with General Motors. The Model 24 was quite fashionable with its brass fittings, wood instrument panel, angled spare tires, and sporty lines. One look at this car and you can see why Oakland was one of General Motors' brightest jewels.
Known for its attractive lines and superb performance, this 1912 Premier Series N Model 660 Roadster claimed to be the first car to use an emblem on the radiator.
This is a 1912 Peerless Model 36K touring car. Peerless was among the pioneers of six-cylinder car manufacturers in America and developed the first accelerator pedal, tilt steering wheel, and front-mounted engine that powered a rear axle via a drive shaft.
For those who want the best, this 1912 Roush & Lang 80-volt electric car appealed to wealthy urban women for its driving simplicity, quiet operation, and elegance, making it one of the most prestigious and expensive electric cars. Oddly, the stylish coach was designed for conversation, with the front passenger facing the driver's seat in the rear. This 1913 Argo Model C electric 4-drive limousine had an 80-volt Westinghouse DC motor with 5 forward and 5 reverse speeds. The car was said to appeal to every woman who sees it, yet she turns in her final analysis to the man for his judgment on the construction and the engineering design. Do you know who casts the final vote when an electric is sold? It's a man every time, and we have him solid. The car a man approves.
Here we have a 1914 Henderson Model 66 Roadster. It was the first American car whose gas tank was suspended under the dash rather than under the seat. Before fuel pumps, gasoline used gravity to reach the engine. Thus, cars with tanks under the seats often had to be driven up steep hills in reverse to keep the gas flowing.
This is the first compact car made in America, a 1914 Grant Model M Roadster. Advertised as the first high-grade motor car to be sold under $500, the Grant was one of the first cars to have a transaxle. The dash was notable for its complete absence of instruments, leading one passenger to note, "One could certainly watch the scenery as there were no instruments to watch." Advertised as cheerful, willing, and fearless of distance and hills, this 1914 Moline Knight Model MK50 touring car's engine set a world endurance record by running 337 hours non-stop at wide-open throttle.
Oh, mister, oh, sister, tell me the...
America's first cycle car, the 1914 Woods Mobilette Model 3 Tandem Roadster, was a lightweight car that was little more than a motorcycle with 4 wheels and a chain drive. Optional equipment included brakes for $10 and a speedometer for $11.
In her direction. Oh, me, oh,
This 1916 Dodge Model 30-35 touring car is one of the very first Dodges shipped to Fairbanks. It was used by Tom Gibson as a passenger stage between Fairbanks and Valdez and is in all original condition.
tell me where, tell me where.
This is a 1917 Ford Model T Snow Flyer with an optional snowmobile kit that included front wooden runners and crawler tracks on the rear wheels. This snowmobile kit marks the first recorded use of the term snowmobile.
See her coming down the street.
The one-cylinder 1917 Cleveland lightweight motorcycle was famous for starting on the first kick and was designed for use by dispatch drivers during World War I.
Cast an eye in her direction.
Advertised as the car of 1,000 speeds, this 1917 Owen Magnetic Model M25 touring car was one of America's earliest hybrid cars with a 6-cylinder electromagnetic drive. It had no mechanical connection between the engine and the rear wheels. Instead, its gasoline engine turned an electric generator that created a tremendous magnetic field. The magnetic field then transmitted current to an electric motor that drove the rear axle.
Why this car has a unique second brake pedal for the front passenger remains a mystery.
I repeat, don't you
Boasting a massive 825 cubic inch engine, this 1917 Pierce Arrow Model 66A4 passenger touring car had the largest engine to ever power an American automobile, even to this day. Getting only 8.5 miles per gallon, the car required a huge 36-gallon fuel tank in order to travel 300 miles. Towering more than 7 feet tall, it was known as the mightiest automobile of its era. Pierce Arrow established itself as the highest echelon of the luxury car market.
This over-the-top statement of elegance is a 1918 Biddle Series H town car, a true Cinderella car. The car's style blatantly showed that its owner not only had the financial means to afford a chauffeur, but even made the hired help sit outside, separated by a pane of glass. The passenger compartment had paneled wood ceiling, brocade and wood upholstery, pull-up windows and silk shades, ornate lights, and a flower vase.
Originally owned by Wallace Reed, the American Valentino of silent movies, this 1919 McFarlane Type 125 four-passenger sport touring car was known as the American Rolls-Royce for its tremendous size, prestige, and sophistication. Many famous people owned them, including Jack Dempsey, Fatty Arbuckle, and Al Capone.
by the silver reed?
Named for the forest in France that was the scene of the greatest American battle of World War I, this 1920 Argonne Model D2 passenger roadster, quote, sells without demonstration. It is the last Argonne of only 24 produced. It was a striking car with its wire wheels and V radiator design that borrowed heavily from the European Austro-Daimler company.
The world's most expensive car of its time, the 1921 Hein V-Lock V12 Sporting Victoria, cost $25,000. It had a guaranteed top speed of 100 miles per hour and was one of the first cars to offer four-wheel hydraulic brakes, which could be locked to prevent theft.
This early hot rod is a 1923 Ford Model T with a Mercury Speedster body. For those who couldn't afford a Stutz or Mercer, converting a Ford Model T into a high-performance Speedster was feasible. They'd strip off the original body, soup up the engine, and retrofit it with an aerodynamic body. One could build their own body or buy a kit complete with radiator, floorboards, hood, rear gasoline tank, and body for as little as $100.
Often called the Forgotten Stutz, this elegant 1925 Speedway 6 Series 695 Sport Brougham was Stutz's most luxurious car to date.
This 1927 Stutz Vertical 8 Custom Series AA Black Hawk Boat-Tail Speedster with its boat-tail design added 10 to 12 miles per hour to the car's top speed and made it impossible for other cars to profitably hang in its draft during races due to its radical back end. For over 20 years, Pierce Arrow supplied cars to U.S. presidents, such as this 1928 Pierce Arrow, Series 81 Runabout. It was the last 6 Pierce Arrow produced. It also had an innovative foot dimmer switch.
Built for the man that demands proof, this 1928 Oakland Model 212 All-American Landau sedan had passenger footrests, mohair upholstery, inlaid walnut finish dash, and a smoking case. Oakland was a division of General Motors and the only parent company to be killed off by its own companion marquee, Pontiac.
This is a 1930 Packard Deluxe 8 Roadster. Packard, known as one of the 3 Ps alongside Peerless and Pierce Arrow, introduced innovations like the modern steering wheel, H-gear slot shift pattern, and ride control that allowed the driver to adjust the shock absorbers based on road conditions.
Considered by many to be one of the most beautifully designed cars of all time, this 1931 Cord Series L29 Cabriolet was America's first mass-produced front-wheel drive car. Quote, "The Cord creates a place for itself no other car has ever occupied."
Designed to rival Lincoln and Cadillac in the lesser luxury field, this 1932 Chrysler Custom Imperial Series CL convertible sedan introduced floating power, whereby the engine was balanced on just 2 rubber mountings, permitting the engine to rock on its axis without transmitting the torque to the passenger compartment. This incredible car is a 1933 Auburn Model 12-161A custom boat-tail speedster with a 12-cylinder engine and a maximum speed of 99 miles per hour. The Auburn was, quote, above the mass class and was the cornerstone of E.L. Cord's automobile empire, which also included Cord and Duesenberg cars. Movie stars like to be photographed next to these outrageous cars. The 1933 Hupmobile Silver Anniversary Series K-321 Victoria was, quote, a finer, richer car at a lower price. It was the first car designed by the famed industrial designer Raymond Loewy, who also designed the Chrysler Building, the original Coke bottle, and the Studebaker Avanti.
This is a 1934 American Austin Series 475 Coupe. At $345, the baby Austins were popular among celebrities like Al Jolson, W.C. Fields, Buster Keaton, and Hemingway. The driver and passenger's feet reached halfway under the hood, stopping only 12 inches from the radiator. The car was never taken seriously and was often the subject of jokes and college pranks. This powerful 12-cylinder 1934 Packard convertible touring car is considered to have one of the most beautiful dashboards ever made. Quote, just ask the man who owns one. It also was the first car to incorporate a built-in radio.
This elegant 1936 Packard 12 7-passenger convertible touring car was the top-of-the-line offering from Packard. Many consider the 12s of the 1930s to be the finest automobiles produced by Packard.
Think what a year can bring.
Here we find the Valdez Transportation Company's fleet of Studebakers lined up on the dock to meet passengers arriving from Seattle in the 1930s.
That's what you get, folks.
This is a 1926 Fordson snow motor F-tractor mounted on 2 hollow cylinders. The spiral ribs on each cylinder are mirror images of one another. When power was applied, the cylinders revolved in opposite directions and propelled the vehicle forward or backward.
Well, can't you guess? She feels neglected, and he's suspected of making whoop.